Bienvenidos and welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol, the place where we discuss all things USMNT y la seleccionmexicana. My name is Adrian. I'm joined once again by my co-host and Tocayo, Adrian. Adrian, what's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going, dude? Just excited to see the USMNT and these different roster play in the Gold Cup, and just getting excited, dude. Getting ready for it.
Yeah, man, it's going to be exciting. You went to go see Austin FC last night, didn't you?
Yeah, dude. Kind of a boring game, but it's always. I mean, I'm not a fan of Austin FC, but I do have to say that it's a nice atmosphere. Atmosphere. It's definitely a good environment and a good experience to go to the Q2 stadium for sure.
Yeah, definitely one of the best atmospheres in the league. But Adrian, as you mentioned, we're excited to see USMNT in the Gold Cup. This is going to be our USMNT Gold Cup preview episode. We'll be discussing, who they brought roster-wise, who they're going to be playing in their group, predictions for quarterfinal, semifinal, final, and just gonna get right into it, man. Let's start with the roster, dude. This roster is definitely different from the one that they brought in the Nations League. This roster is kind of say the B team with some sprinkled A team players in there. But yeah, let's get into it and see. I'm interested to see your thoughts on it. Definitely, as compared to the killer roster we saw in the Nations League. So the goalkeepers he's bringing, of course, BJ Callahan. This is his last tournament in charge. It's been great. Yeah, fallen soldier, but he did amazing for us. Matt Turner, goalkeeper, who's obviously the starting goalkeeper for the USMNT. He has Gaga Slonina, Chelsea youth player. I don't know if he's a youth player, but a loanee, and Sean Johnson from, I think he's in Toronto FC now. For defense, he brought DeAndre Yedlin from Inter Miami, Aaron Long from LAFC, Matt Miazga from FC Cincinnati, Brian Reynolds from Roma, but he spent the last season at Westerlo. He also brought DeJuan Jones. He brought Miles Robinson from Atlanta United, Jalen Neal from LA Galaxy, John Tolkien from New York Red Bulls. And I think that is it for defense. Midfield, he brought Giancarlo Bustio from Venezia in the second division of Serie A. I guess Serie B, right? Alan Sonora from FC Juarez, James Sands from New York FC, NYCFC, Christian Roldan from Seattle Sounders, Georgi Mihailovic from AZ Alkmaar, Aiden Morris from Columbus Crew, and for forwards, he brought Jordan Morris, Seattle Sounders, Zendejas from America, Brandon Vasquez, FC Cincinnati, Julian Gressel from Vancouver, and El Caballo Cal from San Jose Earthquakes, as well as Jesus Ferreira from FC Dallas. So definitely a couple A-team players in there with Matt Turner, Miles Robinson. Who else would be considered an A-team? Is that mainly it, probably, at this point? Alex Zendejas was a bench A-team player. A lot of really...
I don't know. Did you mention Georgi Mihailovic?
Yeah, he's kind of on the... He's obviously one of the European players, right? But there's so many European players now that they don't get play time. So he's probably on the fringe of A team, maybe B team. I mean, I'm pretty sure the USMNT can make 2 full European-based teams at this point, which is something that could never have been said before about the team.
What about Jesus Ferreira?
I guess with Balogun, he's kind of been pushed down in the pecking order, right? And I think there's no denying that Ricardo Pepi's he's up there with Balogun as probably the 1 and 2, both of them. And then it goes, Jesus Ferreira, Haji Wright, Josh Sargent, etc. In no respective order, but obviously the top 2 right now are definitely Ricardo Pepi and Balogun. So what are your thoughts on this roster, man? Do you think they have enough to compete with I think the clear favorites are Mexico, just because Mexico's bringing their A team. Not to say that the A team is anything special at this point, but they're bringing pretty much who they took for the Nations League. Even though I think I was reading today that Edson Alvarez might be out. I don't know if he picked up a knock or because of his transfer, but I was reading that he might be the baja. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this USMNT squad, man?
I think it's a strong roster for the expectations of Gold Cup, right? I think we all know that Gold Cup is it isn't necessarily the most competitive tournament that is out there in FIFA. I'm kind of surprised because I know that it used to be a FIFA tournament. That meant that if the teams called up any of the players, the clubs are forced to let them go, right? But I think I heard somewhere I can't remember, and please PPG Nation, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this Gold Cup is no longer a FIFA certified or FIFA approved tournament. So that's why a lot of the European players aren't necessarily required to show up to this tournament. And also, I know that USMNT handles things differently, where they have a very open relationship with the clubs as well as the players. So if the player asks for a specific, permission to exempt himself from a call up because of contract reasons or whatever the case may be, the USMNT is way more lenient on that kind of stuff. But I think, as far as if we look at the entire tournament and the countries that are going to take participation in, I think this is a very competitive roster. Of course, most of them are MLS players, but I think that doesn't necessarily say anything. I think it just goes to show that the MLS is one of the strongest, I guess, leagues in North America for sure. Um, but I think the USMNT understands that if they don't win this Gold Cup, it doesn't really matter because they already won the one trophy that actually has more weight on the region, which is the Nations League, and I think it's also a good move from them in the sense of we see players that have been called up previously for those matches that aren't necessarily FIFA required matches, like Alex Sendejas, like Brandon Vasquez, and even our favorite Sonora. So I think it just goes to show that the USMNT really has a good handle on the depth of players and what how much can they do with them, right? They understand that they have a hierarchy, sorry, of who goes first and who goes second and who goes third, that they have so much leeway that they can do whatever they want, man. I mean, you can see that they have some sprinkles of European players here, like Georgi Mihailovic, who's arguably maybe the him and maybe Alex Sendejas, who are perhaps A team caliber, but they have that flexibility, they have that flex to say, you know what, I'm gonna grab two guys who are on the very edge of being part of that
Mm-hmm.
A team, and I'm just gonna put them here to cover those specific areas that I need more, or I guess I need to show more muscle on.
Yeah, good point. A lot of depth for sure. I want to go through kind of our formation predictions. The
Hmm.
last time we saw this squad, um, uh, this squad, 80% of the squad, more or less, some changes here or there, but was in January at the Camp Cupcake when they played Serbia and Colombia. And I feel, BJ Callahan being part of the same technical staff at that time under Triple G, under at that time it was Tonyo Hudson. He'll probably play something similar with this squad being a 4-3-3. Um, I'm thinking Turner in the back, obviously. Right back, Julian Gressel. Center backs, Matt Miazga and Miles Robinson. Left back would be, who was John Tolkien. The forwards, I'll save the midfielders for last because that's something I want to touch on. The forwards, Alex Sendejas, maybe leading the line, Jesus Ferreira, because I think Brandon Vasquez has kind of calmed down in the MLS. He started off hot, and I guess on the left forward, right forward being Sendejas, center forward being Vasquez, left forward being El Caballo Kate Cal, who had a pretty good youth 23 World Cup.
Yeah.
And in the middle, I feel it's where this team kind of lacks. I don't know where the goals or the creativeness will be coming from. I think the defense is good. I think they probably have Miles Robinson is probably going to be the best center back in the tournament. He's really good. Might be because rediscovering his form. But the forwards, I think, can do well. But the midfields, where I struggle to see where that creativeness will come from. I think he'll start Aiden Morris right in the middle. To the right hand side of him will be Alan Sonora, how he did back in Camp Cupcake, and to the left would probably be Mihailovic. So I know he usually tends to play more up, but playing him there in the midfield role on the left side is probably a could be a good option for him. What do you think? You think he sticks with the 4-3-3 that we've known to come from, associate with this team?
Yeah, I mean, why change it now if it's working, right? I mean, they have been practicing this formation for a while now, for the last for at least the last 5 years, 4 years, or whatever time has Triple G been part of the USMNT. And even on the Camp Cupcake and all those other matches, they just continue following this specific formation, which I think it's good. It's good in the sense that no matter who you call up, all of them will really understand what's their role on the pitch. But also, I guess it just pretty much puts the team in a specific case where it might be difficult to adapt to different scenarios if they don't practice other formations, right? But I don't think that's a specific case for the USMNT. One thing that I do want to mention is you're saying that maybe Jesus Ferreira leads the way, but yesterday while I was at the Austin FC match against Dallas FC, or how people like to call it, Frisco FC, um, they mentioned that Jesus Ferreira was injured. So I'm completely out of the loop in terms of if he's dropping out of the Gold Cup roster because of that specific injury, or they just call him that he was on the injury list because he's has reported with the USMNT for this tournament. Um,
Hmm.
so that's why I think maybe Brandon Vasquez will start over Jesus Ferreira. But if Herrera is it's healthy, I do agree with your point. Brandon Vasquez, while he isn't as hot as he was last season with FC Cincinnati, although he's still a crucial player for them,
Mhm.
he hasn't had a good streak of goals in the recent, or I guess for this season at all. Like I think MLS is almost halfway through its season, and he is definitely not on the scoreboard for Cincinnati as often as he should.
Yeah, I think he scored like 2 weeks ago in a U.S. Open Cup match,
Hmm.
and then before that, it was another 2 weeks that he scored in MLS. It's probably been like 4 weeks now, but that was a penalty. So yeah, he definitely simmered down and isn't firing like he used to. Um, but that's interesting about Jesus Ferreira. I didn't see anything about that, so something we'll definitely monitor. But if he's in the squad, he'll probably start. If not, I mean, Brandon Vasquez isn't a. We talk depth. He isn't a big drop off from there, right? So that's good for the USMNT. So the USMNT is put into the Group A with Jamaica, St. Kitts and Nevis. I don't know where that is. I don't know
It's in
who
the
that is.
Caribbean.
Yeah, and it's probably one of those teams that play with like
Teachers,
teachers and
yeah, and accountants
right,
and all that stuff. Yeah,
yeah, and Trinidad and Tobago, who is the nemesis of the 2018 World Cup to the USA, who ultimately prevented them from advancing to the to the World Cup. Um, Group A, man, I think it's pretty obvious who we have as favorites. USMNT topping the group, Jamaica second. Um, I think Jamaica is probably the real challenge of this group and could be a dark horse. A lot of their players are British born, play in Championship or Premier League or smaller leagues in Europe, who have not British born. They're probably like Sterling, either Jamaican born or British born. That they have the chance to play for both nations because
hmm
Jamaica's one part of the Commonwealth, right? So
hmm
they've been tapping into that market a lot here recently, and I was going through their squad, and a lot of their most of their players are Euro based, so
like
they might be
championship level, right?
yeah, and that's a good quality
Hmm.
level, man,
I agree.
especially for concacaf. So they might be a dark horse for sure. So the first match is June 24th, which is Saturday. They play in Soldier Field in Chicago. The second match is June 28th. They play against St. Kitts and Nevis. Sorry, the first match is against Jamaica. Second match, June 28th in City Park in St. Louis. And third match is July 2nd, which is next Sunday from now, when they finish up against Trinidad and Tobago at the Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. So that's Group A. Group B is Group Mexico's in with Honduras, Haiti, and Qatar. We're going to go into more depth with that in our Mexico Gold Cup preview. But again, I think I had Mexico and Honduras qualifying from this group. What about you?
I think it's gonna be Mexico and Qatar.
Okay.
Hmm.
The Qatar squad that's fresh off the World Cup.
Yeah, and I think Honduras has a. Well, I mean, I know the eltri is kind of a shit show right now, but okay, Honduras is not far behind.
Yeah. Who was it that recently lost like 7-0? I think it was El
El
Salvador to some,
Salvador, yeah.
right?
I think they got
Yeah.
destroyed, dude.
Group C is Costa Rica, El Salvador, Panama, and Martinique. I think Panama is the strongest of this group,
Yeah.
topping it, and with Costa Rica not being the Costa Rica of the
Hmm.
years past, a lot weaker. Keylor Navas isn't playing. A lot of their historic players have since retired. So I still think they have enough to get out of the group, but I think Panama takes top of the group. And Group D is Canada, Cuba, Guatemala, and Guadeloupe. Obviously, I think Canada takes this one with Guatemala being second. Um, so for the quarters, it's set up so that the first quarterfinal is between winners of Group D versus runners up of Group A. So based off our predictions, that leads Canada versus Jamaica. After that, it would be winners of Group B versus runners up Group C. Mexico versus Costa Rica. That's always a good one in CONCACAF. Winners A, USA versus runners up of D, Guatemala. I don't think USA should have a problem there. And winner C, Panama versus runners up of B, Honduras, or in your case, it was Qatar.
Hmm.
So between those, Canada, Jamaica, that should be a good match. But I think Canada
Yeah.
has enough to take it. Even though I'll tell you, they're not taking their stars. They're not taking Alphonsodavies. They're not taking
Eustáquio.
Jonathan David, yeah, or Clyde Laren. Any of those guys. They still have some of their their core in like Osorio and
Mainly
who's
MLS players, right?
yeah, mainly their MLS guys. Yeah,
Maybe
uh,
Larrea, Osorio.
yeah, a lot of those guys. And I think it might just be enough to edge out Jamaica, but I won't be surprised if Jamaica wins just because of they have that underdog status and that dark horse status. Mexico versus Costa Rica. I think Costa Rica just in a really weak spot right now. And Mexico, even though they're in a weak spot as well, takes it. USA, Guatemala. I think USA doesn't have a problem there. And Panama and Honduras. I think Panama takes it. Leading semifinals to be a very good mouthwatering matchup between Canada and Mexico, and then USA Panama. I ultimately think USA beats Panama, and I think Mexico has enough to go over Canada, man. Leading us to the classic Gold Cup final that we're always accustomed to, Mexico USA. Um, would you
That's what
agree
everyone
with?
wants, dude.
Yeah, that's what everybody wants. That's what CONCACAF wants, money
Mhm.
wise.
Exactly.
Um, so yeah, that would be on Sunday, July 16th, the final. I don't know, man. Do you think USA has? I'm gonna ask you the same thing, but reverse when we do the Mexico preview. Do you
Hmm.
think Mexico has enough? Do you think USA has enough to top Mexico, and why?
I think it's going to be an interesting match. I think it has enough to win it. That doesn't mean that they're gonna, roll over Mexico like they did on the Nations League semifinal. It just means that they have enough talent to, clench a goal and just, either park the bus or play smart. And it helps a lot that they all know how to play with each other. They have been through camps, plenty of times, so that's always nice, and that's something that Mexico is lacking, that cohesiveness in their team, in their, I guess, team game or whatever. So I think, yeah, I think USMNT has just enough to topple Mexico, even though Mexico is bringing everything to the Gold Cup.
Yeah, I don't think we'd be surprised if the USA beats Mexico, but we won't be surprised if Mexico beats the US either. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be a very even, like you said, it's going to be completely different from the Nations League final. We're not going to see that 3-0 destroying complete dominance. It's going to be one of the classic USA Mexico matches where it might go 1-0, 2-1, 2-0, but very battled. It might go extra time, right? So we'll see. Interesting fact: this is going to be interim coach versus interim coach if it does end up to this point in the final, USA Mexico. So that'd be interesting to see which interim coach goes out on top. One that already knows that he's going to go, after this tournament, he's out. The other one who's kind of fighting for his life to remain as the head coach. So yeah, excited for the Gold Cup to start. Starts this weekend, and USA opens the tournament against Jamaica, and it's the first match of the tournament, not just for
Yeah.
USA but in general. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up here, then?
No, man, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I know that you have Canada playing the semifinals, but I think I'm gonna put my money in Jamaica. Uh, Very interesting team. Uh, and sometimes I think having a lot of British players, it's something against them rather than a strength, just
Mm-hmm.
because they don't have like a good mix of Jamaican born or Jamaican grown players versus those British or with Jamaican heritage players.
Right.
So that's always like a conflict for them. But I think Jamaica will make it all the way to the semifinals, and it will be definitely a good challenger for the USMNT and Mexico on this tournament. But other than that, I mean, I'm not sure if I should be excited for the Gold Cup because it's Concacaf, but
Right.
we always get excited for the USMNT and eltri. So
Hey,
here
man.
we are.
Any football is good football, I guess, even
Yeah.
if it's CONCACAF.
Mhm.
It definitely has lost the prestige that it had.
Whatever prestige
Prestige.
it has. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
exactly. Since the Nations League showed up, right? That's kind of taken away the importance of it. But you know, I think if Jamaica does beat Canada, I think Jamaica will be a bigger test to Mexico than Canada.
Yeah.
Mexico always struggles against Jamaica, man. The speed of the Jamaican players, they always find gaps behind the slower
Yeah.
center Mexican center backs, and the height, the athleticism. Basically, Mexico
Hmm.
struggles against really athletic teams.
Hmm.
Um, but we'll see. We'll see what happens, man. Uh, so, Adrian, this has been our USMNT Gold Cup preview, man. As we wrap up, where can our listeners find us, dude?
They can always find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast on. Lastly but not least, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Puro Pinche Gol. We post stuff every now and then.
Yeah, make sure to follow us and let us know in the comments below how far do you got the USMNT making it? Do you have them taking the trophy back to back and winning 4 in a row of the Nations League Gold Cup, Nations League Gold Cup? Do you think one of these other teams can challenge? Do you expect another USMNT Mexico final like most people do and how CONCACAF are hoping for? Definitely like to interact with you guys in the comments, so let us know your thoughts. And yeah, there. I'll see you in the Mexico Gold Cup preview, bro.
Always a pleasure,
Have a
my
good
friend.
one.
Take it easy.
Likewise. See ya.